Alright everybody, today we're going to go ahead and put it all together. You've been working on a lot of different concepts with fractions, decimals, and percents. Today we're going to work with it in a table. So, first one, they're giving me a fraction. The good news is this is an easily converted fraction. It's a BFF fraction. So we're going to multiply both of these by 5. That means this is going to be 100. And this is going to be 65. Oops, go backwards there. So 65 over 100 is easy, so that means our decimal, 65 hundredths. And then if we're going to turn the decimal into a percent, we multiply it by 100, move the decimal over 2 places, so this ends up being 65%. Okay, now I'm getting a percent. So if it's 100%, and I want to go ahead and convert it into a decimal, that means we're dividing it by 100. Put my decimal on it and move it back 2. That means my decimal is 1 whole. And your fraction, simplified, technically would be 1 over 1, which you and I both know is just 1. Alright, I always think that if you can read the decimal, you can absolutely write the fraction. So if I read this decimal, it's 64 hundredths. So that's what I want to start with for my fraction. I look at it and think, okay, can I simplify that? Well, they're both even numbers, so we definitely can. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both of them by 4. This is going to end up being 25. If I do 4 into 64, do the work out to the side if we need to. So 4 into 6 is 1 time. 24, 16. So can I reduce 16 25ths? Nope. It's as far as we go. Convert my decimal into a percent, multiply it by 100, 64%. Now we've reached one that we don't know it off the top of our head, most of us. It's also one that doesn't convert easily to 100, so it's not a BFF kind of fraction. So I want to divide 8 into 3, because I know it's going to be a decimal. Put that decimal in a 0, elevate my decimal. 8 does not go into 3, but it does go into 30. So if I take 8 into 30, it's going to go 3 times. 24. I subtract. Get 6. It didn't cancel yet. Add another 0. So now I'm into 8 into 60. Multiply by 7. 56. Subtract. 10 minus 6 is 4. It didn't cancel yet, so I add one more 0. Bring it down. 8 into 40. And we get 5 times. So my decimal is 375 thousandths. To convert it into a percent, move it over 2 places, and we get 37.5%. Similar problem, 625 thousandths. So go percent first, multiply it by 100, move it 2, 62.5%. Now again, we have to read the decimal. Since it's 3 places, 625 thousandths. So we're going to start with this. So since we have 625 over 1,000, I know that both of them are divisible by 5, because this ends in a 5. So we do 625 divided by 5. It's going to give us 1, 12, 2, and then 2, and then a 5. Alright, we're down to 125 over, if we think about 1,000 divided by 5. That one's a little easier for us to do. We do, 5 doesn't go into 1, but it goes into 10. And then the rest are zeros. So 125 over 200 Both of those are divisible by 5. So if I divide 125 by 5, that's going to be 2 and 5. So 25 over, if we think about 200 divided by 5, that's 40. So last one, they're still both multiples of 5. So that gives us to 5 over 8. 625 thousandths reduces to 5/8. 56%. Decimal goes back 2 times because we're dividing by 100. So there's my decimal. I read the decimal, 56 hundredths. So that helps me write the fraction. And I think sorry, a little glitch there, that was interesting. 56 over 100, we can divide both of these by 4. So 100 divided by 4 is 25. And if we think about 56 divided by 4, it's going to go in 1 time, 14. Okay. Next, again, read it first, 8 hundredths. We can reduce it. 4 is going to give us 2 over 25. Take the decimal, multiply it by 100, we end up with 8%. Alright, I love ones like this. 1 and 7 over 50. Well, the 1 means it's going to be 1 whole, so I can do that already in the decimal. 7 over 50 is a BFF kind of fraction. Multiplying by 2. 100. 7 and 2 is 14. So 14 hundredths means 0.14. Multiply it by 100, move it over 2. 114%. Multiply this by 100, move it over 2. 18%. Again, we read it and go, oh, okay, let's see. 18 hundredths. There's our fraction. Both even numbers. Divide them by 2, we get 9 over 50. Okay, 22%. There's my invisible decimal. Move it over 2. 0.22. Read the number, 22 hundredths. Both even numbers, divide them by 2, and we get 11 over 50. Alright, we're to another one that, it's one that most of us don't know off the top of our head, and it doesn't convert easily into 100. So our method we learned is we can always divide the denominator into the numerator. So 15 into 13. Okay, well, I know 15 doesn't go into 1. I know it doesn't go into 13. 130. It's going to have to be pretty big, because I know that that's almost 150, which is almost multiplied by 10. So I'm going to try 8. 5 times 8 is 40. 120. Man, that's pretty close. So 8, 120, subtract. So I get 10 left over. Add my 0. So I'm trying to take 15 into 100. So now I ask myself, okay, well, 15, I could do it times 5, 75, times 6 is 90. So that's as close as I'm going to get. So 6, 90, subtract 0, 10 minus 9 is 1. Uh-oh. You see what's going to happen is we're going to keep getting 100. So this is what we call repeating decimal. So I put my bar over it because that means it's going to continue to be sixes forever. So my decimal is going to be 0.86. Usually we throw another 6 on and put a bar over it. I can still multiply it by 100 to turn it into a percent. 86.6%. And really important to put that bar over it. There's a big difference between that. Same thing here. If it's sixes with a bar, it means it's going to be sixes forever. Multiply it by 100. Move it over 2. 66.6% with a bar over it. Now this is one that we really should know. So I would call it a benchmark because you're going to see it a lot. So 66 hundredths is going to reduce. This one is 2/3. You might even put a little star by that one because you are definitely going to see it again. All right, we have another one. There is not an easy way to do this one in terms of to 100. Some people know this one off the top of their head, but 8 into 1, decimal 0, elevate the decimal. So 8 doesn't go into 1, but it does go into 10 one time. 10 minus 8 is 2. 0, bring it down. 8 into 20 goes 2 times. 16. Not done yet. 10 minus 6 is 4. Add a 0. 8 into 40 is 5 times. So that means 125 thousandths. Move it over 2 places, multiply it by 100, 12.5%. Okay, so this one, put my invisible decimal on it, divide it by 100. That gives us either 4.3, or you could do it 4.30 because they are equivalent. They're the same thing. This is pretty easy to work with because that means it's going to be 4 and, so whole number, 1 place, 3 tenths. And we don't reduce 3 tenths. 1.45. Let's go percent first. 1, 2, 145%. If I can read it, I can write it. 1 and 45 hundredths. 1 45 hundredths. Know these are both divisible by 5. So 45 divided by 5 is 9. And 100 divided by 5 is 20. So 1 and 9/20. 1%, I put that invisible decimal on and I move it back 2. So that means this one will be 0.01. I can read that as 1/100th. So 1 over 100. And our last one, 33 1/3%. Again, guys, I think this is one that it's pretty helpful for us to be able to know it's going to be written the same way. 33.3 with a bar. So that means if we move it back to 0.3, and we'll just do 333, repeating, so you know it's going to be 3's forever. And that one, again, really would be great if you remembered is 1/3. Okay, everybody, good luck.